My name is Otis Kavanaugh. I am 67 years old, a retiree, and for many years, I owned a service station here in Waycross, Georgia. What I am about to tell you today is about the most humiliating day of my life. The day I discovered that the trust we place in people can become our greatest weakness. It was my wedding day when I caught my bride and my son in the restroom plotting to destroy me. But before I get to that part of the story, I need to go back to the beginning. Everything that happened is rooted in the kind of man I was and the choices I made. If this story of betrayal and pain touches your heart, please hit that like button to make this old man happy. Subscribe to the Grandpa's Memoirs channel right now so you don't miss the next stories I will tell with all my heart. And tell me in the comments where you are watching this video from and what time it is there right now. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted? I love knowing which city you're from and what time of day you're joining me. I was born and raised right here in Waycross, back when the town was still small and everyone knew each other. My father was a mechanic, a hard-working man who got up before the sun rose and only came home after dark. My mother took care of the house and the four of us siblings. We didn't have luxuries, but we never went without. There was always food on the table, even if it was just grits, beans, and a single fried egg split between us all. From an early age, I learned the value of $1. By the time I was 10, I was already helping my father in the shop, passing him wrenches, cleaning parts, and learning the name of every tool. He used to say that a real man doesn't sit around waiting for things to fall from the sky. I grew up with that stuck in my head. I went to school as long as I could, but my real education was right there, covered in grease and motor oil. When I was a young man, I was the type who liked to work hard and have a little fun afterward. On weekends, there was baseball at the park and dances at the local community center. It was at one of those dances that I met Pearl, my first and greatest love. She was the daughter of a local shopkeeper, decent girl from a traditional family. When I first saw her dancing there with her friends, I thought, is that the woman I want by my side for the rest of my life? It wasn't easy winning her over. Pearl's father didn't think I was good enough for his daughter. He saw me as just a mechanic's son, with no guaranteed future. But I was stubborn and persistent. I worked double shifts to prove I had worth. I took on every odd job I could find. I saved every penny. I showed him I was a man of my word. After 2 years of steady courting, he finally agreed to our marriage. I married Pearl, full of dreams and plans. We wanted to build a good life, have children, and give them everything we never had. She was affectionate, a true partner, the kind who stays by her husband's side through thick and thin. She never failed me, never gave me a reason to doubt her. She was a woman of character. But I didn't know then that life had a test waiting for me that would show just how wrong we can be about people. The first years of the marriage were defined by hard work and saving. I kept helping my father at the shop, but I had a bigger dream in my head. I wanted my own business, something I could leave for the future. That was when the opportunity came up to buy a service station for sale on the edge of town. It was a huge risk. I had to take out a loan and put up everything he owned as collateral. But Pearl trusted me. She supported me, and together we took that leap. The station started slow, but over time, it grew. Waycross was developing, more people were passing through on the highway, and business picked up. I was the kind of owner who was always there. I knew the customers by name. I knew their lives. I made sure to provide good service, the best prices, and total honesty. That brought results. The business prospered more than I ever imagined. When Pearl got pregnant, it was the greatest joy of my life. I was going to be a father. I was going to have someone to teach everything I had learned to. Someone to carry on the family name. Darnell was born. My son, my legacy. I held him for the first time and swore I would give him everything I didn't have. That he would never have to go through what I went through. That was where I started the biggest mistake of my life. But I didn't know it yet. I thought I was being a good father when, in reality, I was creating my own downfall. Darnell grew up as an only child, surrounded by all the care and attention we could give him. Pearl was a dedicated mother, but I confess I was even worse. I had this fixed idea that my son wouldn't suffer like I did. He wouldn't have to work as a child. He wouldn't know the bitter taste of going without. I wanted him to have everything easy, handed to him on a silver platter. Today I see that was my greatest failure as a father. But at the time, I thought I was doing the right thing. From the time he was a little boy, he had the best of everything. If a new toy came out, I bought it. Designer clothes, imported sneakers, video games, the best bicycles, he had it all. Pearl would complain sometimes. She'd say I was overdoing it, that children need to learn the value of things. But I wouldn't listen. I thought she was being too strict. I told her we could afford it, so why not give it to him? The station was doing well, money wasn't an issue, and I wanted to see my son happy. In school, Darnell was an average student. He didn't put in much effort because he knew that in the end, I would fix everything. If he got a bad grade, I'd go talk to the principal, make a donation to the gym renovation, and the grade would magically improve. If he skipped class, I'd write a note lying that he was sick. If he got into a fight, I'd defend him without even hearing the other side. I always thought I was protecting my son when I was actually raising a man without responsibility or character. Life in Waycross was good and quiet. On weekends, we'd have those big family cookouts. We'd invite the relatives and grill ribs in the backyard. I'd be at the smoker, and Pearl would be making that baked macaroni and cheese that was just a marvel. Darnell would be playing with his cousins. Everything seemed perfect. We had built a comfortable life. We had our health and our love. I looked at all of it and thought God had blessed me too much. The station kept growing. I hired more employees, expanded the building, and added a convenience store. It became a landmark in the area. Everyone passing through stopped there. I liked being present and supervising, but I could also take a few days off whenever I wanted. I took Pearl and Darnell on trips to see other cities, Savannah, Charleston, even down to New Orleans. I wanted my son to see the world and have experiences I never had. But the more I gave him, the more he wanted. And the more he wanted, the more I gave. It became a vicious cycle I couldn't see. Pearl tried to warn me. She said the boy was becoming spoiled and too used to the easy path. But I was stubborn. I'd argue that she was being too hard, that children needed to enjoy their childhood. How wrong I was, Lord. When Darnell reached his teens, things started getting more complicated. He wanted to go out every weekend. He wanted money in his pocket. He wanted the most expensive clothes in the mall. And I gave it all to him. Pearl suggested he work at the station, even just part-time, to learn the value of money. I always found an excuse not to let him, that he needed to focus on his studies, that he was too young, that when the right time came, he would learn. The right time never came. I bought Darnell a car the day he got his license. Brand new, beautiful car, something I could only afford after I was 40 years old. Pearl was angry with me. She said it was absurd that he didn't even have a job yet. What was he going to do with a car like that? But I justified it by saying it was for his safety when he went to college, so he wouldn't have to depend on anyone. He hadn't even started college yet, but I was already making everything easy. In reality, I was trying to buy my son's love. I was afraid of being a rigid father like mine was, afraid of creating distance between us. So I gave and I gave, thinking that would make him love and respect me more. But respect isn't bought with gifts. It isn't earned with easy money. I only learned that too late when the bill came due, and it was more expensive than I could have imagined. Pearl was my anchor, my voice of reason. She saw the things I refused to see. She pointed out the mistakes I was making. But I, proud and stubborn, as I've always been, wouldn't budge. I thought I knew better, that I was doing the right thing. If I had listened to her, so many things could have been different. But you only value the advice when it's too late, when the damage is already done. Years passed, and Darnell became a young adult. He tried a few different colleges, but he never finished anything. He'd start a course, get bored, and switch to another. I paid for all of it. I never pushed him, never demanded that he graduate. He'd say he was finding himself and needed time. The truth was, he was too used to the easy life to dedicate himself to anything that required work. He kept living with Pearl and me, paying nothing, helping with nothing, just enjoying himself. He'd sleep late, go out with friends, and spend money like it grew on trees. And I allowed it because I was afraid of being tough, afraid of being rejected. I, who should have been the father who teaches and expects results, was the father who pampered and made everything too easy. A child who grows up without limits becomes an adult without character. But back then, I was still living in the illusion that everything was fine, that my son was just a bit immature, but would grow up eventually. Pearl didn't argue with me as much about it anymore. I think she had given up on trying to make me see. She focused on taking care of the house, keeping the family together, and being the wonderful wife she always was. And I, blinded by stubbornness and pride, kept thinking I knew it all, until life decided to teach me in the worst way possible that a father who doesn't discipline his son is creating his own tragedy. Life went on in Waycross with that routine that you start thinking is eternal. I was at the station, and Pearl was taking care of the house. Darnell was living his life without responsibilities. We had been together for so many years that I couldn't even imagine what life would be like without her. She was my partner at every hour, the woman who built everything with me, who put up with my flaws, and who loved me even when I didn't deserve it. It was during a seemingly ordinary time that Pearl started complaining of some aches. Nothing too alarming at first. You know how it is? Back pain, feeling tired. Things you let slide thinking they'll go away. But they didn't. Over time, it got worse. She lost weight and lost that energy she always had. When I finally convinced her to go to the doctor, it had already progressed too far. Cancer. The word hit my head like a bolt of lightning. My Pearl, who had never had health problems and was so strong, was sick. And it wasn't just any sickness. It was one of those names that scares you just to say it. The doctors were blunt. It had spread. The chances were slim. Time was short. I felt the floor disappear beneath my feet in that office. I did everything in my power. I took her to the best doctors in Atlanta. I paid for private treatments. I bought every medication they ordered. I left the station half attended. I spent more time caring for her than working. But money doesn't buy health. It doesn't buy more time. No matter how much I tried, no matter how much I spent, the disease was winning the battle. Watching the woman I loved waste away like that was the worst pain I have ever felt in my life. She, who was always so vibrant and full of life, became weak and frail. She lost her hair from the chemo, and she felt sick from the meds. But she still tried to smile, so I wouldn't worry. She'd say she was going to get better, that we'd still travel a lot, that there was still so much life ahead. But deep down, we knew. We knew we were saying goodbye. Darnell didn't help at all during that period. He'd show up at the hospital once in a while, stay for 30 minutes, and then want to leave. He couldn't stand seeing his mother sick. He said it affected him too much. He preferred to go out with friends, distract himself, and pretend nothing was happening. I got angry with him a few times, but Pearl begged me not to fight. She said everyone deals with pain in their own way, always defending her son, even in her final moments. When she passed, a part of me died with her. So many years side by side, building everything together, sharing dreams and struggles. Suddenly, I was alone, a widower without my partner. The house felt empty and meaningless. I'd come home from the station, and the smell of her cooking was gone. Her voice calling for me was gone. Her hug at the end of the day was gone. There was only silence and a deep longing. I fell into a deep depression. I stopped taking care of myself. I stopped caring about things. The station kept running because I had good employees, but I went there without any heart, just to pass the time. I lost weight. I stopped leaving the house, and I didn't want in to see anyone. Friends tried to cheer me up. They'd call me to play dominoes at the park or have a beer. But I turned them all down. I just wanted to be alone with my grief. Darnell kept living with me, but it was like we were two strangers in the same house. He did his thing, I did mine. Once in a while, he'd ask for money, and I'd give it to him. He'd ask for the car, and I'd let him take it. I didn't have the strength to argue, to teach, or to be a father. I was too busy missing Pearl, blaming myself for not noticing the illness sooner, and wondering if I could have done something different. The months passed, slowly and heavily. Some people say, time heals everything. But I think you just learn to live with the pain. The missing didn't go away. It just changed shape. Some days, I cried alone in the room looking at old photos. Some days I talked to her as if she were still there. It seemed like madness, but it was my way of keeping her close. It was in that broken state, living on autopilot, when Vanessa appeared in my life. It had been some time since I lost Pearl, long enough for others to think I should have moved on, but not long enough to heal the hole in my chest. I was a widower, alone, vulnerable, and a service station owner who made good money. I was the perfect target, but I didn't know it yet. She showed up at the station one ordinary afternoon. A beautiful woman, much younger than me, and very friendly. She stopped to get gas and asked to use the restroom. When she came back, she struck up a conversation with me while I was at the register. She said she was new in town, looking for work, and had come from Atlanta to start over. She spoke in such a sweet way. She looked me in the eye with an attention I hadn't received in a long time. We talked for a bit, and she left. But she came back the next day, and the day after that, always with an excuse. To buy water, to get gas, to ask for directions. And she always stayed there talking to me, asking me questions, seeming interested in everything I said. She said her name was Vanessa Waverly, that she came from a simple family and had worked as a waitress, but wanted a change. I, who was so lonely and starving for attention, started to enjoy those conversations. She made me laugh. She made me forget the sadness I carried. She praised the station, saying I must be a very intelligent man to have built all of that. She called me Mr. Otis with that respectful touch, but at the same time, she had a look in her eyes that suggested other things. And I, like an old fool, was charmed. I started looking forward to her visits. I'd fix my hair before going to the station. I'd pick out nicer clothes. I'd get anxious waiting to see if she'd show up. When she arrived, my day improved. We talked about everything. Life in Waycross, Georgia. The plans she had. She always told me I was so interesting, that I had so much history to tell, and that I was an admirable man. I drank those words like a man dying of thirst in the desert. One day, she showed up, saying she was having trouble paying her rent. That money was tight. She didn't ask for anything directly, but she hinted at it. I, who was always one to help, offered a loan. She refused with class. She said she couldn't accept it, that she barely knew me, but I insisted. I said it was just until she got settled. Finally, she accepted, thanked me while crying, and said I was an angel God had put in her path. In that moment, I felt important, useful, and needed. I didn't realize I was being played like a complete fool. After that loan, Vanessa started showing up even more. Always grateful, always attentive, always with that smile that lit up my day. She'd bring me a slice of cake she'd supposedly made, or a fresh cup of coffee, small kindnesses that made my heart go soft. I, who had spent so much time alone, drowning in sadness, was starting to feel that warmth of having someone care about me again. The conversations became more intimate. She told me about the difficult childhood she had, how life hadn't been easy in Atlanta, and the dreams she had of building a better life. She said she worked as a waitress in bars and restaurants. Honest work, but exhausting, dealing with all kinds of people. She spoke with a sadness in her eyes that made me want to protect her, care for her, and get her out of that situation. I believed every word. It didn't cross my mind to doubt her, to investigate, or to ask deeper questions. She seemed so sincere, so fragile, so in need of a new beginning. And I, in my recent widower's need, wanted to be the man who gave her that new beginning. I wanted to be important in someone's life again, to be needed, to be loved. Loneliness had left me far too vulnerable. It was one Sunday afternoon that I invited her to lunch at my house. I made fried chicken and collard greens, trying to make it as good as Pearl used to. Vanessa praised everything. She said it was delicious, and that I was a talented man. Darnell was home that day, which was rare since he usually lived in the streets with his friends. I introduced the two of them. I said she was a new acquaintance in town I was helping out. I noticed right away that Darnell looked at her differently. That look a man gives when he's interested in a woman. You know, Vanessa was friendly with him, polite, but nothing more. At least, that's how it seemed to me at the time. The three of us had lunch, talked about trivial things, and then everyone went their separate ways. But that look in Darnell's eyes stayed in my head, bothering me a little. In the following days, I noticed Darnell asking about Vanessa, who she was, where she came from, what I knew about her. I told him she was just a young woman starting over, and that I was lending a hand. He smirked and said he thought she was pretty. "Too bad she's your friend," he said. I laughed it off at the time. I thought it was just a young man's comment. I didn't give it any weight. my relationship with Vanessa evolved naturally. We started going out together, to the movies in Valdosta, or dinner at a local restaurant here in Waycross. She always chose the simplest places. She said she didn't like flashiness, that she preferred sincere things. That made me love her even more, because I saw her as a humble woman with no material interests. Lord, how wrong I was. One day, she told me, crying, that her landlord was threatening to evict her because she was behind on rent. She said she was looking for a job but couldn't find anything, that she was desperate and didn't know what to do. My heart tightened seeing her like that. I offered to pay her rent until she got on her feet. She resisted a bit out of politeness, but eventually accepted, thanking me profusely and saying she'd pay back every cent as soon as she got work. I started paying her rent every month. And not just that, I gave her money for food, for clothes, for whatever she needed. She always thanked me in that affectionate way, kissed my cheek, hugged me tight, and said I was the only real man she'd ever known, that God had put me in her path. And I felt important. I felt like a man again. I felt alive after being dead inside for so long. That was when I started thinking about something more serious. The idea of dating again, having a partner, not being alone for the rest of my life. Pearl had been gone for a while, and as much as I missed her, life went on. I had a right to be happy again, didn't I? I talked to some friends about it, and then most of them supported me. Only Clarence, my childhood friend, warned me to be careful. He said a much younger woman looking for an older man is usually after the money. I got angry with him. I said it wasn't like that at all, that she was different. But there was something I didn't know, a hidden truth that, if I had known it, would have changed everything. Vanessa wasn't a waitress. She had worked as an escort in Atlanta, in the high-end bars and late-night hotels. She had gotten into debt with dangerous people. She owed money she couldn't pay. When the collectors started pressing her, she fled to Waycross to start over. But starting over for her didn't mean working honestly. It meant finding an old fool with money she could deceive. And when she saw me there, a recent widower, station owner, needy, and alone, she saw the perfect opportunity. Every sweet word she said was calculated. Every tear she shed was planned. Every gesture of affection was a trap, and I fell for it head first, like a total idiot. While I was thinking about building a future with her, about having a companion for my old age, and being happy again, she was counting how much she could take from me. She saw the service station as a lucrative business. She saw my house as an asset. She saw my need as a weakness to be exploited. I was just a target to her, a means to get what she wanted. But I only found that out much later, when it was already too late. What I also didn't know was that my own son, Darnell, had his eye on her from that first lunch. He, who had never worked a day in his life, who had always lived off me, saw in Vanessa a beautiful woman, older than him, but experienced. He developed an interest that would turn into the greatest betrayal a son can commit against a father. Vanessa noticed his interest too, and instead of pulling away, instead of keeping her distance out of respect for me, the man who was helping her, she saw another opportunity there. A spoiled son, used to easy money, with no character and no loyalty. She thought that if she won him over too, she'd have more control over the situation and more guarantees of getting what she wanted. 2 fools instead of 1. There was a day I came home early and found Darnell leaving his room in a suspicious hurry. I asked if everything was okay. He said he was in a rush to meet a friend. I noticed he was more dressed up than usual, smelling of expensive cologne. It seemed odd to me, but I didn't question it. Sons have a right to privacy, I thought. Another mistake on my list of fatherhood failures. What I didn't know was that he was going to meet Vanessa. He had gotten her number, asked her out, and she had accepted. They started meeting in secret, at out-of-the-way bars and in small neighboring towns where no one would recognize them. They talked about me, about how much money I had, about how I was a fool, and how easy it would be to trick me. Vanessa told him the truth about her past, about being an escort and running from debts. Instead of scaring him, it brought them closer. He saw in her a woman as unscrupulous as himself, someone who also just wanted an advantage. She saw in him a cowardly and greedy ally. Hunger met the desire to eat, as the saying goes. They conspired together. She would keep deceiving me, making me believe she loved me, and preparing me for a marriage. After the wedding, she'd have a right to half of everything I owned. Then it was just a matter of waiting for me to die of old age, or finding a way to get me out of the picture sooner. And Darnell would get his inheritance. She'd get her share as the widow. And the two of them would go off together to live the high life with the money I sweated to earn. That was their plan, and I, like an idiot, saw nothing, suspected nothing. A few months after meeting Vanessa, I made the decision to ask her to marry me. I know many people might think it was too fast, that I should have waited and gotten to know her better. But when you reach a certain age, and you've lost the woman of your life, you get this feeling that time is moving too fast. I didn't want it to be alone for the rest of my days. I didn't want to die without someone by my side. I bought a beautiful ring at a jewelry store in Savannah, one of those finely crafted gold bands. I planned a special dinner at a restaurant here in Waycross. Nothing too sophisticated, because Vanessa always said she preferred the simple things. I was nervous as a schoolboy, rehearsing what I was going to say, imagining her happiness when she saw the ring. I thought I was building a new future, a second chance at happiness. Poor fool that I was. When I knelt down and opened the box, she faked surprise and emotion. Her eyes filled with tears, her voice broke. She said yes between sobs. She hugged me right there in the middle of the restaurant. The people around us applauded. It was a moment I kept in my heart as one of the best memories of my life. Only it was all a lie. Her tears were from joy, yes, but not for the reason I thought. She was happy because the plan was working, because she was closer to getting her hands on my assets. What I didn't know was that very same night, after I dropped her off at her place, she called Darnell. She told him all about the proposal, the ring, and how I had fallen straight into the trap. The two of them laughed at me over the phone, made jokes about my face, and celebrated like they had won the lottery. My own son, people, my own blood, mocking me with the woman I thought I loved. I started organizing the wedding. I wanted to do something nice, something dignified to celebrate this new chapter. Vanessa pretended to worry about the costs. She said I was overdoing it, but I saw that sparkle in her eyes, the sparkle of someone who was loving it. I thought it was the joy of a bride when it was really the greed of someone counting the money being spent, money she thought would soon be hers too. While I was planning the party, the secret meetings between her and Darnell became more frequent and bolder. They saw each other almost every week, always in secluded spots, always with excuses ready in case anyone asked. He'd say he was visiting friends in other cities. She'd say she was handling things in Atlanta, and I trusting both of them, never questioned a thing. There was one time I had to go to Tallahassee to handle some business for the station, paperwork and such. I was going to be out all day. I told Darnell the night before. I said I was leaving very early and wouldn't be back until night. He had that look of someone who had just received good news, but he hid it by saying he'd take the chance to sleep in. What I didn't expect was that as soon as I left the house, he called Vanessa and invited her over to my home. She came. She entered my house, sat on my sofa, drank from my glass, and lay in my bed. The two of them did everything under my roof, laughing at me, mocking me. Then they even had the nerve to take pictures together, huddled up in my bedroom, like a trophy of their betrayal. When I got home that night, tired from the trip, the house looked normal and tidy. I never imagined that just a few hours earlier, it had been the stage for the greatest act of cowardice. Darnell was different in the days leading up to the wedding, more upbeat, more talkative, even more attentive to me. I thought he was happy because I was rebuilding my life, that he was maturing and becoming a better son. What an idiot I was. He was excited because the scam was almost complete, because he'd soon have access to the easy money he always wanted without ever having to work. I started noticing some strange things, but my brain always made up an excuse, an explanation that made sense. I'd see Darnell on his phone, hiding the screen when I walked by. I thought it was just social media stuff, normal privacy for a young man. I'd see Vanessa distracted sometimes while we talked, as if she were thinking about something else. I thought it was just bride jitters, nervousness as the wedding got closer. There was one Sunday when I had lunch at the house and invited Vanessa. Darnell was there too. During lunch, I caught a few looks between them, some quiet giggles when they thought I wasn't looking. It bothered me for a second, but then Vanessa came over to kiss me and said she was so happy to be there with my family. And I believed it. I swallowed that whole lie like it was the truth. Clarence, my childhood friend, tried to warn me again. He said he had seen Darnell at a bar in a town an hour away with a woman who looked a lot like Vanessa, but he wasn't sure. I got angry with him. I said he was seeing things, that the town was far away, and Darnell didn't even go there. I defended my son and my fiancée with tooth and nail. I called my friend a gossip and envious. He got upset and said he was just trying to help, but I wouldn't listen. The truth is, I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want it to even consider the possibility that they were deceiving me. I had invested so much emotion in that relationship. I had placed so much hope in this new beginning that admitting it was all a lie would mean admitting I was a complete fool. And my pride wouldn't let me admit that. The wedding preparations moved forward. I sent out the invitations. 200 people confirmed they'd be there. I bought a new suit and new shoes. I even got my hair cut at a fancy place. Vanessa chose a white lace wedding dress, one of those fairy tale gowns. When she tried it on for me, I got choked up thinking about how beautiful she'd look walking down the aisle. I didn't imagine that beneath all that white was a heart as black as coal. A week before the wedding, Vanessa said she needed to go to Atlanta to handle some last-minute things, pick up documents, and say goodbye to some friends. She was going to spend the whole day there and come back at night. I offered to go with her, but she said it wasn't necessary, that I needed to take care of the final details for the party. I gave her money for gas and lunch. She thanked me, kissed me, and left. What she went to do was not pick up any documents. She went to meet Darnell at a motel on the highway halfway between Waycross and Atlanta. They spent the whole day there, planning in detail